Hello. And welcome to ProTrain's Certified Cost Professional CCP Preparation course. In this lecture we will talk about how to write CCP technical paper. Let us get started.
Hello and welcome to lecture on writing CCP technical paper. We have already discussed that one of the requirements of CCP certification is to write and submit 2500 word technical paper and obtain passing grade on it. In this lecture, we'll talk about ins and outs of CCP technical paper writing. Certified Cost Professional CCP Technical Paper Handbook issued by AAC International in 2017 states purpose of technical paper to evaluate candidate ability to communicate ideas, statement, recommendation or solution in logical and a reasonable manner. Technical paper is used as gauge to measure candidate professional knowledge and how they can articulate it. The handbook goes on and states that the technical paper is not intended that the candidate write a thesis quality or a paper describing some unique and innovative approach to a work-related situation. However, the technical paper should be well organized and coherent and exemplify professional level knowledge. Writing technical paper is challenging and can be often daunting. I have talked to many prospective CC aspirants who were enthusiastic at the thought of getting their CCP certification until they know that one of the requirements was technical paper. Sometimes the enthusiasm vanishes or at least dwindles and it replaced by anxiety. But not to worry much. There are many ways that can make paper writing, if not a pleasant task, but at least less stressful. In this lecture, we will cover those tools and techniques which can help you write CCP technical paper and obtain a passing grade on it. In this lecture, we will learn component of technical paper and their recommended contents, selecting technical paper title, how to plan technical paper writing, writing the technical paper, reviewing the technical paper before sending to AAC International for grading. So let us jump into the lecture. I will see you again at the end of the lecture with lesson recap.
In this part of the lecture, we will review the technical paper requirements set by AAC International for CCP technical paper. We will also walk through guidelines for styling and paper format. Let's start with the length of the paper. Length. The paper or article must be a minimum of 2,500 words, not including the abstract, figures, tables, and appendices. Papers that do not meet appropriate length requirements will not be accepted, regardless of quality. Sometimes students ask, what is the maximum word count? As per Certified Cost Professional, CCP, Technical Paper Handbook issued by AAC International in 2017, the maximum word count is 5,000 words. Don't forget to do words count before sending the paper to AAC International. All the word processing software have a word count function. In Microsoft Word, the word count is shown on the left-hand side on the bottom ribbon. Note that Microsoft Word would show the word count for the whole file at a time. To only view the word count for the paper body, you must select the part of the file that contains the main paper. Style of the contents. Writing style is one of primary factors that influence the presentation of the paper. While technical content is the primary consideration in evaluating the paper, composition and organization are also important factors in determining the professional quality of the document. The paper must demonstrate the author's general knowledge of the subject and ability to present material in an orderly and informative manner. Short, concise sentences and paragraphs generally contribute to clarity. Good diction, or word choice, and syntax are important considerations in judging the professional quality of the paper. Proper spelling and the correct use of grammar and punctuation are required to receive a passing grade. The paper should not contain unexplained acronyms, technical jargon, shop talks, or telegraphic language. Although the author may be very familiar with the subject matter and the ideas presented, it should never be assumed that the reader shares the same familiarity. Appropriate styling of illustration, names, abbreviations and equation is recommended at the time of finalizing the technical paper. Following points need consideration for this. Illustrations. Illustrations means tables, graphs, and figures that may substantially improve the overall quality of the paper. They greatly enhance the clarity of topics and the reader's understanding of the material presented. Ideally, an illustration should be integrated with the text and placed on the same page it is referenced, or placed after that point in the text where it is introduced. The illustration number, descriptive title, and page number must be placed clearly on the page. All information necessary for interpretation of the illustration, such as legends, annotations, axis descriptions of graphs, and the like, should be included as part of the illustration. Copies of illustrations from books and magazines should be used only on rare occasions, and then only with the written permission of the copyright owner. When such material is used, written permission for such use must be obtained and noted as part of the figure's caption, and any written permission obtained should accompany your paper. Copyright and plagiarism issues are discussed more elaborately in the later part of this lecture. Organization or company names. When referencing a name of a body, organization, verify that the name is used properly. For example, it would be incorrect to reference AAC International as AACI or ACEINT. Company or organization names are registered trademarks, and to alter the name is incorrect. Abbreviations. An abbreviation may be used if it is first referenced in parentheses, immediately following the first occurrence of the spelled-out name in the paper. Thereafter, the abbreviation can be used instead of the name. For example, critical path method, CPM, can be written when this term is first used in the paper. Thereafter, term CPM can be used in the remaining part of the paper. Equations. When using an equation as shown in the example below, show the equation and then explain each of the variables from left to right. Unique equation number must be assigned to each equation. A list showing equation numbers and their respective page can also be added to the table of contents. Depending on the presentation style, technical paper subject, nature of research, and literature review, a paper may be composed and organized in many different ways. In this part of the lecture we will understand paper format, section of a technical paper and the contents of each sections. A typical technical paper contains title page, table of contents, list of tables, list of figures, abstract, and the paper proper, the main paper. Paper proper contains the introduction, the body, the conclusion, list of references, bibliography, acknowledgements, and appendices. Some of the elements discussed here are required for the paper to be acceptable. To assist student write technical paper correctly, ACE International has issued a technical paper template. The template is available in Technical Paper Support section. Let us explore all the section of a typical paper one after other, in greater detail now. Title page. All papers must have a title page that shows the title of the paper, the author's identification number, and the date of authorship. Do not include the author's name on the title page. Paper title is the author's introduction of the subject to the reader. An effective title will be descriptive and easy to remember. To be effective, a title should be as brief as possible. However, there is no such strict criterion for word count in the paper title. Technical papers should not have ambiguous titles. Ambiguous titles do not clearly convey the topic to the audience. Instead, such ambiguous topic indicate that the paper is only useful to a small local audience of people who already know the author. Or it is a paper to attract people seeking entertainment, instead of continuing their education. If the title is unclear, the paper may not attract the intended audience. Table of contents. All papers must include a table of contents page that lists the subject and page number for each major division, section, and/or subsection of the paper. This page must be clearly labeled, Table of Contents. Make sure you have a table of contents, and does your table of contents mirror the contents of the paper? For instance, if the table of contents page indicates that the technical paper includes an introduction section, body of work section, conclusion section, and a reference page. Does the paper actually have all of these sections with the correct page number? Does it indicate what's in the paper? List of tables. Include a separate list of tables if the paper has more than one table. It should be clearly labeled as list of tables and should follow the same format used for the table of contents, listing the number and title of each table and the appropriate page number. The list of tables should not be included on the same page as the table of contents. List of figures. Include a separate list of figures if the paper has more than one graph and/or illustration. It should be clearly labeled as list of figures, and should also follow the same format as the table of contents, listing the number and title of each graph or illustration and the appropriate page number. It may be included on the same page as the list of tables, if there is room to accommodate both lists on one page. But it should not be included on the same page as the table of contents. Abstract. Each paper must include, as a separate page, an abstract of the paper. The abstract is a short summary of the technical paper, no more than a page in length. It should be a clear and concise synopsis of the entire paper. Ideally, it should be between 200 and 300 words and should concisely summarize the most important features of the paper. The abstract should, in effect, be an executive summary of the paper and describe the problem or basic premise of the paper, followed by the major points established in the paper and finishing with one or two major highlights from the conclusion. Do not include items in the abstract that are not supported by or discussed in the paper proper. Actually, having the abstract in front of you when reviewing your technical paper may be a good way to catch any misconnects. For instance, in your abstract, you want to summarize your conclusions. Do these conclusions match what is actually in the conclusions section of the technical paper? It is important to note that the abstract is not included in the word count when determining if the paper meets the length requirement. Abstract is written at the last, after all other elements of the paper are complete. Paper proper or the main paper. The paper must be presented in the traditional structure with three basic parts: an introduction, the body, and the conclusion. A technical paper should be self-contained, and not dependent on a publisher to make it useful. However, it is not required that the major parts, which are the introduction, the body and the conclusion, be specifically labeled by these names. The author should label the major and minor divisions of the paper as most appropriate, to describe the contents of each element, and the flow of the paper. Let us understand the requirement of each part of the structure. Introduction. The introduction should briefly, be around 200 to 300 words, describe the intent of the paper, the importance of the topic, and the manner in which it is presented. Make sure that your introduction section provides the background of the problem. It should also state the purpose for undertaking this topic. Include reference to any relevant work noted in the literature, or similar studies that have an impact on your paper. If possible, potential applications of your work can be noted. If the author has substantial background and expertise in the subject matter, it may be appropriate to indicate the author's credentials in the introduction. Students often lose focus at the time of writing introduction, particularly in the situation when they have not decided the conclusion of the paper. In such situation, one choice would be to write the introduction after body and conclusion of the paper is complete. Alternatively, the introduction can be written at the beginning and later revisited when the body of the paper is complete. A technical paper can be written primarily following two approaches. The first approach would be sharing author's experience on a theme covered under Total Cost Management Framework. Second approach would be to write a technical paper based on facts and data. Such data may be available to the author, or collected by author to write the technical paper. In both the approaches, the body is the heart of the paper. For the body of your technical paper, make sure that you not only discuss the basis for data, but also make an interpretation of the data and its application or analysis. It should describe such things as idea development, procedures for data collection, observations, methods, or the overall premise for the paper. The body should give evidence of original and creative thinking in addressing the subject. In a scenario where the technical paper is based on author's experience, importance must be given to a good storytelling. Paper should be presented in such a way that the experience of the author presents and offers the reader a solution to a specific professional problem or an issue. For papers based on data, it is not sufficient to merely collect and present data. The author's interpretation of the meaning of the data and its possible applications determines the value of the paper. Methodology used, flowcharts, computer programs, organizational charts, or other materials, as appropriate, should be discussed in the body. It is also appropriate to explain your contribution to the organization, arrangement, and analysis of the data. The body should be constructed by dividing the subject material into logical but related and coherent topics and subtopics. The material should flow naturally from one topic, thought, or idea to the next, within a common theme throughout the paper. All material presented should advance the main theme or thought of the paper. Each sentence within a topic or subtopic should build on the last and provide a transition to the next. All statements of fact or information taken from secondary sources should be denoted with a reference number, and the referenced material listed in detail in a footnote at the bottom of the page. List of references can also be added immediately at the end of the paper. References and bibliography are discussed in greater detail later in the lecture. At the time of evaluating the body of the paper, a grader may look at three things like: does your paper make its point? Is the paper informative or persuasive? Finally, are the references or quotes properly footnoted or referenced? Conclusion. The conclusion should follow naturally from material presented in the body, and should not contain any new material that does not properly belong to the body. The conclusion is somewhat like a summary, in that it should briefly reiterate the major points established in the body, and then describe the author's interpretation of the overall meaning, or conclusions from the material. If there is more than one conclusion, each conclusion must have been justified by the material and discussion in the body of the paper. List of references. The term reference applies when material is used from a secondary source, by either a statement of fact, a direct quotation, indirectly by paraphrasing, or through graphic presentation. References are encouraged because they enhance the credibility of any technical paper by providing additional justification for the paper. The entire secondary source must be referenced. This gives the reader with enough information to search out the secondary source for further study. So, each time other sources are used in the paper, whether in the text or in a table, graph or illustration, it must be denoted by a unique reference number, and the source listed by the same number in a list of references immediately following the conclusion. The list of references must be clearly labeled on a separate page. The list should include articles, books, or reports published or unpublished. It may include videos, oral references, or letters. References may be formatted in several different ways, but they must be complete. To standardize reference writing format, AC International has issued a technical paper writing template. This also contains standard for references formatting. The template can be downloaded from AACE website in certification section, or ProTrain's CCP course download area. When secondary sources are examined or studied, but no information is incorporated into the paper, either directly or indirectly, it may be appropriate to list the secondary source in a bibliography. Bibliography further enhances the credibility of the paper. If a bibliography is included, it should be on a separate page immediately following the list of references, and should be clearly labeled Bibliography of other relevant materials. Use the same format as used for the references, but without the reference number. Just plainly show the list of bibliography. Do not include sources listed as references in the bibliography. If there is no list of references for the paper, the bibliography should be placed at the end of the paper, immediately following the conclusion. Acknowledgements. It is appropriate to acknowledge, by name, any companies, individuals, and agencies that have provided useful advice, service, materials, or information for the preparation of the paper. To do this, use a separate page clearly labeled Acknowledgements at the end of the paper following the list of references and/or bibliography. Appendices. Appendices are primarily used to include data and information important to the conclusions of the paper, but which could detract from the free-flow explanation of the main body of the paper. For example, comprehensive tables of reiterative data with several variables are useful only as an appendix. Any material that supports or expands the technical material may be attached as appendix material, but also must be referenced at the appropriate places in the textual body of the paper. To accomplish this, if there is more than one appendix, number each appendix and refer to the appropriate appendix by number. It is important to note that appendices are not included in the word count when determining if the paper meets the length requirements. With this we complete the paper format part of this lecture. Going forward we shall discuss how the grader shall evaluate your paper. Evaluation criteria. The requirements stated in earlier section of this lecture are generally used as evaluation criteria for determining the acceptability of papers submitted to fulfill the requirements for certification as a CCP. The evaluation criteria also include consideration of the neatness and appearance of the final paper, overall impressions of the content, the general quality of writing, the quality of illustrations, and adherence to instructions. High-quality papers are often recommended for further publication. If your paper is unacceptable but appears to have merit once specific deficiencies are corrected, your paper will be returned to you with suggestions for particular revisions. If the concerns are addressed within the prescribed time frame, you may resubmit the corrected paper for a second evaluation. If your paper receives a passing score, but you have not passed the written exam, you may retake the written exam at a later date within 12 months without being required to resubmit another professional paper. Please note that AACE International may amend their exam policies. While we do best efforts to update this course, however, we would still recommend you to refer the latest CCP certification information issued by AACE International in conjunction with this lecture to avoid any miscommunication. Writing is often tedious, boring and confusing, especially for the construction professional. Those with passing years in industry have distanced themselves from the academic tastes. Therefore, brushing up the writing skills is needed. A focused approach would be required to write the technical paper. Now when we are aware of the technical paper requirements and its evaluation criterion, in this part of the lecture, we shall cover how to write a technical paper. Points to focus are: how to find a technical paper topic, planning technical paper writing, reviewing your technical paper, checking your technical paper before sending to AACE International. We shall discuss each point in great details in coming slides. At times it becomes difficult to identify a topic of writing. While AACE International has not specified specific set of topics, however, it is recommended to choose the topic which is covered in Total Cost Framework body of knowledge. Below is the list of topics. Some of the major headers which are covered in Total Cost Management Framework: cost estimation and budgeting, schedule planning and development, progress and performance management, forecasting, procurement, contract, planning and management, change management, value analysis and engineering, risk management, quality management, people and performance management, health, safety, and environment. Often abstract title of knowledge areas may not help a student to find an appropriate topic for them. A quick read of Cost Engineering Journal published by ACE International may be helpful for the purpose for finding title. There is generally one certification technical paper posted in every issue of Cost Engineering Journal. To support our student for setting up right benchmark for their technical paper writing and selecting the technical paper title, we have shared several technical paper samples written by our previous students, who later successfully passed the CCP exam. More tips on selecting the technical paper topics. Select a topic on which you have sufficient skills and knowledge. Word count of 2,500 would need a good amount of content writing. Searching for references can be tedious and time-consuming. We would recommend that you choose only those topics on which you have enough technical literature already available with you. If you are intending to use your project data in your technical paper, make sure that you have obtained relevant permission from your employer and/or client for this purpose. Many times, finding precise and exact phrase for topic can be difficult at beginning, sometime even when the paper body is not complete and the conclusion is drawn. In such situation, starting with a certain topic at beginning, and subsequently revising during course of writing the paper can be helpful. Now, when we have identified the title of your technical paper topic, it is time to start writing. As discussed, technical papers are generally focused on data, data interpretation, validation, and application. However, technical papers on management topics and based on writer's experience and logical reasoning may contain only descriptive narratives. For any paper, plan on a few weeks only to write a 2,500-word paper. For technical papers, be sure that the data is solid, the equations are correct. It is recommended that finalization of technical paper topic and data gathering is started well in advance prior to start of the writing. A time frame of minimum 3 months is recommended, keeping in mind your busy work schedule and family time. When you start from scratch, in no circumstances a good paper can be written in less than 2 weeks. Except when you are into writing business or hobby. Choosing a target audience is probably a good idea. The first decision of authoring is to decide what audience will benefit the most with the material. Organize your thinking. Group your thoughts in the writing flow as below. Background. Statement of the problem. Procedure followed. Statement of results. Discussion of results. Conclusion and recommendation. One of the approaches for organizing your thoughts and the paper content is storyboarding. Storyboarding is the process of taking events or facts and placing them into an order that makes sense to the reader. This process is useful in ordering contents from basic input to the final conclusion. Storyboarding will help you generate a mental picture of the technical paper before you start to write. Following are the steps of storyboarding the technical paper. Organize all information, references, data and other elements that you have already collected. The first step is to figure out what you have, what you want, and what you still need in order to meet your objectives. Based on the available information, Start developing building blocks. Blocks are nothing but outline or the framework of your technical paper. Write blocks on a paper or yellow slip, or several pieces of paper or yellow slips with one block on each paper or yellow slip. Write preliminary text outline and full text when appropriate or already available. Begin with core building blocks. In other words, the major contents of the technical paper. Start filling in core blocks with the information you have collected. Make this process iterative and keep looking for the missing contents you need to complete your paper. Keep the information flow back of your mind. Think back and forth and start working on information linkages between the blocks. Use of flowchart and mind map can be helpful to establish information linkages. One of the greatest benefits for storyboarding is the ability to use visuals to develop information linkages. We recommend finding a table or whiteboard and organizing your blocks on the table. As you look at the whole, you can visualize the links between blocks and perhaps find new ones. You may also begin to see information flow that are not being met, or that could be met through an alternative organization between the blocks. Once ideas flow smoothly, it is time to insert transitions between ideas. Use illustration for this purpose. Illustrations help readers get a mental picture of the point, so that they are prepared to move to the next new topic in the story. Be brief and do not create a story behind the illustration because it is not important, and could detract from the technical presentation. It is recommended to use illustration to add clarity and better understanding to the technical paper, not to add any redundancy. Build additional information linkages and review overall layout of content. Basically go over everything you have done so far, and see if anything was missed from the holistic perspective. Also, remove redundant information. Repeat the process until you think that all the open ends are closed and information flow is smooth. Now that the storyboard is complete, the paper is ready to write. Take the first block, create a header, and write a paragraph about the idea. Continue developing contents for other block and expand them. Once the blocks have been converted from a set of ideas into a set of paragraphs, read through the paper for clarity. The following are recommendation for writing good contents. Use short sentences. Use short words. Avoid jargons, abbreviations, and acronyms. Use complete sentences. Stick to one idea per paragraph. Have a beginning, introduction, middle, body, and end, conclusion. Be accurate. This means write only the intended contents. Do not write contents for sake of word counts and avoid redundancy. Get through the first draft. Do not throw away the storyboard because in the process of reviewing and commenting, the storyboard serves as the master outline of the paper. Resist major changes at this time. Major changes should have been addressed during the storyboard phase. Cool. Allow some time after completing the draft before revising. The writer is more objective after coming back to the work later. Taking a pause allows the author a new perspective on paper. This is time to change the hat from author to a reviewer. This would be a good time to have a technical reviewer look through the paper for clarity. Revise. This is the most critical step. The original draft will appear disordered, and may require several rewrites. Some well-known authors use 5 or more revisions before they are satisfied. The first revision should investigate whether there is adequate material in the paper to satisfy the problem. Subsequent revisions should look at for clarity, grammatical errors and brevity. Even if the written word lacks some precision, at least the writer can see whether the message is unambiguous, makes sense to the reader. Again, not only must the paper have grammatical clarity, it must also be written with a common style and expression. It is often worthwhile to have a third-party person, the reviewer, read the words to ensure the message is clear and is understandable. Selecting reviewer. Reviewer has dual role while reviewing your paper. One side he should check the paper for clarity, on the other side he should check paper for deficiencies in data, theory, and application. Choose reviewers who you think have appropriate expertise to review your paper. Reviewer can check your technical paper against the CCP technical paper requirement before you actually sent the technical paper to ACE International. Check before sending to ACE International. Get the comments of the reviewer and incorporate them as necessary. Complete the paper minimum a fortnight before the submission deadline. This will allow thorough review from the reviewer and sufficient time to incorporate reviewer comments in your paper. Before sending the paper, check again, ensure that you have done spell check. Sentences structure sometimes gets affected while making changes in the paper. Therefore, a thorough grammar check for the whole paper is recommended. Again, ensure that your paper conform to the ACE International requirements. To do this, the best way is to compare your technical paper with the technical paper template issued by ACE International. Last but not the least, do check the complete paper with plagiarism checker if required. We shall discuss plagiarism in full extent in the next section of this lecture. Plagiarism. As per ACE International Certification Program Plagiarism Policy, for Certified Cost Professional, CCP, technical paper. Plagiarism is considered any wording used in the Certified Cost Professional, CCP, technical paper that is not the author's own words, and not quoted with a bibliography entry. Plagiarism is unethical and nothing less than stealing someone else's intellectual property. The Certification Board believes there is absolutely no excuse or tolerance for plagiarism. The CCP designation carries with it an ethical standard that cannot be tarnished with individuals stealing another person's intellectual property. According to plagiarism.org, the following can be considered acts of plagiarism: turning in someone else's work as your own, copying words or ideas from someone else without giving credit, failing to put a quotation in quotation marks, giving incorrect information about the source of a quotation, changing words but copying the sentence structure of a source without giving credit, copying so many words or ideas from a source that it makes up the majority of your work, whether you give credit or not. In short, ACE International asks each candidate to not only demonstrate that you can communicate, but you must communicate such that you are always avoiding what is known as plagiarism. Passing off someone else's work as your own will not be tolerated by ACE International, and will be deemed an automatic failure of the paper. In order to ensure that your paper doesn't become a failed paper, it is suggested not to copy other works, especially one from internet. We would recommend following points to avoid any plagiarism issue. Quoting a line or two from another sources are acceptable as long as they are properly referenced in the footnote, and in the list of references. If one or more complete paragraphs, illustration or data are taken from other resources, Quoting from copyrighted material and providing the reference in the bibliography does not constitute permission to use the material. When in doubt, always get the author's permission. If copyright permission cannot be obtained, then consider an alternative source to accomplish the objective of citing. There are several plagiarism checker software available for free and on commercial basis. As long as you have written the whole technical paper in your own words, as such there is no need to use plagiarism checker software on your paper. However, in case where you have used information from secondary sources in your technical paper, we suggest that you check your paper for plagiarism using a suitable plagiarism checker software before sending it to AACE International for grading.
It was a quite exhaustive lecture, isn't it? I don't think we have left any important topic untouched about CCP certification. Let us quickly recap what we have learned in this lecture. The lecture was broadly divided into topics of preparation guidance and requirements, technical paper format, and how to write the technical paper. Let's talk about each topic in detail now here. Starting with our first topic, that is preparation, guidance and requirement. Under this topic, we talked about two important things: style of content and illustrations. We understood that it is not only the technical contents, but presentation of material in orderly and informative manner using a right grammar and punctuation is equally important. Illustration must be integrated with text. Company name and equation should be in right format. Thereafter, we went to the technical paper format. We understood that a technical paper is divided into, in the sections of first starting with title page, table of content, list of table, list of figures and abstract. And after the abstract, we have a paper proper or the main paper. In the abstract, we understood that of the abstract is short summary of the technical paper. An abstract helps the reader to understand what is the content of the technical paper. Then we went into detail of the technical paper, the main part of the technical paper, that was the paper proper. The paper proper consists of the introduction. What is introduction? Basically, introduction sets the background of what is the technical paper is talking about. Then we talked about the body of the paper, conclusion, list of references, bibliography, acknowledgement and appendices. So these were the sections inside the main paper. Here, let me highlight that in order to help you writing technical paper in the prescribed format, the same format what we discussed in this lecture, AACE has issued a standard format which can be downloaded from technical paper support section. We have also added link to the CCP technical paper issued by AACE International in 2017. Referring the handbook is not necessary. We have already covered all the details in the lecture. However, if you wish to refer, you can do so. The next topic we talked about is how to write technical paper. In the technical paper writing section of this lecture, we talked about three important things. These are how to write or how to find technical paper topic. In this part, we understood that the topic of the technical paper must be from the TCM framework. And we know that the TCM framework is a very broad framework. Therefore, if you are working in a capital project or a project management environment, any topic relating to your day-to-day function will be a suitable topic for AACE certifications, CCP certification technical paper. Now the second part, we talked about planning technical paper writing. In the technical paper writing part, we talked about method of storyboarding, and we also talked about how you should focus on technical paper writing. We prescribed that a focused approach on the technical paper writing is required in terms of identifying right information being in part of your technical paper. So we talked about that. After that section, we covered about checking the technical paper, how to review the technical paper basically. In that section, we talked about after you have finished your technical paper, you got to allow your technical paper to cool. You have to give some time before you start reviewing the technical paper. We also talked about the important aspect of plagiarism. AAC is very strict about plagiarism. Therefore, we highly recommend you to be careful about this. If it will be found that your technical paper has been copied from a source without referring it as a secondary source in the reference section, your technical paper may be rejected and you may be barred from taking any AAC certification for next 1 year, and your exam fee will also be forfeited. Therefore, you got to be careful on plagiarism. Hope that you find this lecture useful for writing CCP technical paper. I will catch you in next lecture. Till then, bye bye. May you have a happy and fruitful learning.